Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me. I'm sorry for the delay, but the news is breaking so quickly on this Hildebrandt and Franke case that I wanted to make sure that I had the most up-to-date information for you. And also, I wanted to pull some court documents so that I could let you know what's been going on kind of behind the scenes that you may have not heard reported yet. So, you may recall the last time we spoke, there was a shelter hearing that was held on September 7th, and that was in juvenile court. The important to note is that in Utah, in the state of Utah, the juvenile court proceedings are open to the public. They are open to the public. You can go into the courtroom and watch the proceedings. And in fact, reporters did go into that hearing and did report some crazy, horrific allegations that Ruby Franke made in open court. She appeared via Zoom or WebEx or whatever virtual system they have in the Utah Juvenile Court. And Kevin Franke appeared in person, you may recall, with his attorney. So this morning, they had a continuation of that shelter hearing, which turned into a child welfare hearing. You know, they're similar, but not exactly the same. So I have some unedited footage from, I believe it's KUTV in Salt Lake City, that I want to play for you with regard to what happened this morning at the Franke child welfare hearing. Let me just see if I can pull that up for you, and hopefully we can hear the audio, because sometimes we have a problem with the audio.
Cameras weren't allowed inside, but we did get some video of.
Can you hear that? Hang on for 1 second. Again, this is unedited. This was the live
Cameras weren't allowed
broadcast on KUTV in Salt Lake. You can hear it. Thank you, Bassetown Mom, for responding. And this, again, is regard to the shelter hearing with regard to where the children, the 4 minor Franke children that are currently, I believe, under the custody of DCFS in Utah. And it's a hearing to determine where the children will be placed. Recall that the Frankes have 6 children. 2 of them, Shari and Chad, are over 18, and 4 of them are minor children. The 2 youngest were being held prisoner. I'm going to say being held prisoner in JODI Hildebrandt's house in Ivins, Utah, when the youngest son, who was 12 years old, escaped to a neighbor's home. You may recall in the last live, we played the entire 911 call from the neighbor to whose house this poor, emaciated young boy escaped. It was chilling. It was harrowing. The neighbor was very upset. He was in tears while he waited on the 911 call for officers to arrive at his house. He told the 911 operator that the boy was emaciated, that he was bound in duct tape, that he had rope marks around his wrists. And we are now learning that those rope marks may have been so deep that they were to the bone. That is what is being reported. These are horrific, horrific observations. And I'm not even going to say allegations right now. I'm going to say observations by an uninterested witness, a non-party witness, a neighbor who physically saw the condition that the youngest Franke son was in when he escaped JODI Hildebrandt's prison house in Ivins, Utah, and ran to his house asking for food and water. You will also recall in that 911 call that he said to the neighbor, "This is all my fault. I deserved this," something to that effect. He might not have said, "I deserved this," but he definitely said, "This is my fault." And it was chilling. If you have not heard that 911 call after this show today, go back to my last live on this and you'll hear the entire thing. If you are easily triggered or triggered in any way, I won't even say as easily, because even if you're not triggered, that call will trigger you. That is a warning. Here is the unedited footage from the reporter who was outside the juvenile court today for the Franke custody hearing.
Our cameras weren't allowed inside, but we did get some video of some of the key players in this case. Take a look here. Kevin Franke and his lawyer arrived just before 8:30 this morning. His oldest daughter was also there. She arrived separately from Kevin. Ruby was called in remotely. This is a child welfare hearing. It's to determine whether a child is safe. It's not to prosecute parents or guardians. Now, this case involves sensitive information and children, and one of those things that was discussed is whether to close the case to the public or not. The judge said she understands that this case has widespread interest and she wants the court to be transparent. A decision wasn't made yet. So there will be another pre-trial date. Those dates are on October 17th. And then before that, a mediation is set for the 11th. In Provo, I'm Krista McPeak, KUTV 2 News.
Okay, so this is interesting because this is in Provo, because that is where the children live. And the judge has decided that she has not made a determination about whether these proceedings will be closed to the public. My gut is that they will remain open to the public, at least for in-person people who want to come and see this hearing. There may be some restrictions on what the media is allowed to report with regard to the sensitive medical information for these children. And no matter which way you cut it, it is harrowing, it is disturbing. And I know that you are all just as shocked as I am by these allegations, by these continued proceedings. And now that was kind of interesting because it was behind the scenes footage. She has not obviously as yet, I don't know, maybe edited it. They may already have put the clip up on KUTV in Salt Lake. So go there for that coverage later. I also have some unedited footage from the attorney for Kevin Franke, who they caught coming out of the courthouse, who did give a statement to them. Here it is.
Randy, can we talk to you for a minute? Can we talk to you for a minute? Do you mind, Kevin? No, go ahead. All right. Let me just walk him out.
He's saying, let me just walk him out and then I'll talk to you.
Thanks, Randy.
Yeah, thank you.
So you were Appreciate all in there. Why would you have any questions?
Can you bring us up to speed? Where do you think the case is for your client and all the wrangling going on?
Just
Reporter says, can you bring us up to speed? Where do you think the case is with regard to your client? If you're new to my channel, this is what I do. I pause it so that I can tell you the reporter's question, because I think it's really important that you hear the reporter's question so that you have some context for the answer. Again, this is Kevin Franke's attorney appearing this morning in Provo, Utah for the shelter hearing, or the child welfare hearing, with regard to the placement of the 4 minor Franke children.
just what the court said. We're just, as we said in the beginning, we're just working toward trying to get this family healed and get these kids back where they should be. They need to be with a family member, preferably Kevin, and that's what our goal is. We're working hard, Kevin and I, to convince the state that he's an incredible father, as he was before all this happened, and they became separated. But in the meantime, he's just working hard on getting himself back in position to be able to take these kids and raise them as a good father would.
Okay, we're working hard to convince the court that he is an amazing father, just like he was before this hearing. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that in the comments. I know that you have all been following this very closely with me, and I know that you have some very, very strong opinions on his fathering. I know that there are many of you who did watch the 8 Passengers channel when it was live and available. As you know, I did not. I was not aware of the name of Ruby Franke until the first story broke on her. And in some ways, I wish I never heard the name Ruby Franke. But here we are today after the hearing to determine placement of the 4 minor children. Again, this is Kevin Franke's attorney speaking to the media after that hearing.
Do you prefer this case be closed to the public?
She says, do you think that this hearing should be open to the public?
You know what? As to the adults, I don't think anybody cares. But as to the kids, I absolutely think these kids have been through a lot, and to have all this media exposure to them individually as little kids who have been manipulated, I think it's better held privately.
What does it mean to you if the eldest daughter was in attendance today?
What do you think about the eldest daughter coming here today?
She has a right to be there. I don't know what the court will ultimately determine about that, but I think she has a right to be a part of these proceedings. She's part of the family.
Stop. I don't know what the court will ultimately determine about that. Sherry Franke is an adult. She's an interested party. She is a child and she's an adult. She absolutely will never in any way, shape, or form be banned from that courtroom. So I'm not quite sure what he's talking about. Can you not hear him? I have Missy Blue saying she cannot hear him. This is the volume as loud as it goes. So they did not have the greatest audio on this. This was the actual unedited live footage from just about an hour ago outside the juvenile court in Provo. Turn up your volume if you can't hear it. That's what I will just recommend.
Do you have any comments about the last child welfare hearing?
Do you have any comments about the last child welfare hearing? That is the question. As you may recall, during that last child welfare hearing, Ruby Franke made some horrific allegations against one of her own children, in which she indicated that one of her children, she did not say who, had been sexually abusing another child in her family for years, and that the 2 of them, I believe, and don't quote me on the exact details, but it is something like this, had gone on to abuse at least 20 other children, and that one of her children had been looking at P since he or she was 3 years old. She did not specify which child this was. This was all in open court, which, as I said, the juvenile court proceedings are open to the public in Utah. This is very unusual, but they are open to the public. So that was reported at the last shelter hearing. He's just been asked what he thought about that hearing.
I can't talk about that. We went into a lot of detail and a lot of things about the kids that just shouldn't be disclosed.
How long have they been separated?
How long? I think she said, how long have they been separated?
Kevin and Ruby were separated, well, now for 14 months. 13 months when this all kind of raised its ugly head, and then another month since then. So 14 months.
Is there a possibility that if the case were sold to the public that Sherry would still have access to it, or would she also be barred?
That's a
Is there a chance that if these hearings were kept open to the public, that Sherry would still have access to it, or would she not be allowed to come in to the courtroom?
up to the judge.
So, but it could happen.
It could happen either way. Yep. That's just totally up to the judge. But it is her family, so. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Randy. Good to see you again.
Okay, but it is her family, and of course she is an adult, and she is also a witness, and she's also a child of the Frankes. So, I can't see. The only way that the judge may not allow her into the proceedings is if it can be shown that she's going to be a material witness in the proceedings, and the judge does not want her to be there because it may influence her testimony. So that would be the only way that I could see her being excluded from these proceedings. So very telling is that Kevin's attorney tells us that Kevin and Ruby have been separated for 14 months, 13 months when these horrific allegations broke, he says. And also, it has been reported that Kevin has not seen the children, the minor children at least, at any time during this 14-month period. So where was he? And if he wasn't around, should he get custody of these children? Because had he been around, or had he been exercising any type of visitation with these children, perhaps the abuse of these children would not have escalated to such a horrifying level. It's been reported that he said, and if anybody knows where this interview is, because I looked for it before we started, just put it in the chat. Kevin Franke gave an interview. I thought it was to Cuomo, and I don't know why I can't find it right now, but it has been reported that he indicated that, you know, he was told by Ruby that if they separated and he kept away from the children, that they had a chance of getting back together. So he wanted to stay away from the children so that he had a chance of getting back together with Ruby and putting the family back together. So let me know what you think in the comments. Yeah, Aga, I think that's what it was. Yeah, apparently she told him she needed some space, and that's why he wasn't around. Still weird. I don't know any father who loves his children who would stay away from his kids for over a year based on some false hope of getting back together with this crazy woman who doesn't want anything to do with him. So, Hudson, thank you for always being a voice of reason in my chat. Zero visitation for Kevin. These children need to be as far removed from everyone as involved as possible, barring their older sibling. Yeah, Shari is 20 years old. She's been very, very vocal about trying to get DCFS in Utah to pay some attention to the abuse that she has physically, personally witnessed over the past couple of years. She has been very loud about it. If you look at her TikTok, her Instagram, she's all over social media, and she's been all over social media for years trying to get some attention on this case. And it is incredibly disheartening to know that the only way that attention came to this case was because the youngest boy, who is 12, escaped from the restraints in the panic room underneath JODI Hildebrandt's garage and ran to a neighbor asking for food and water. So, you know, on the last live, we also covered some prior 911 calls and police visits that were made to the FRANKE home, which is in Springville, Utah, which is 4 hours away from where the two youngest children were found in Ivins at JODI Hildebrandt's house. There's also been some reporting that Jody and Ruby may have been arrested in Springville the day that the youngest boy escaped. Seems to be a little bit conflicting because if you recall, when we listened to the 911 call of the neighbor, the young boy told the neighbor that JODI Hildebrandt was in fact in the house in Ivins. So there's a lot of conflicting information, and I don't like to report rumors or speculation. I just want to let you kind of know what's out there because we don't really know everything yet. So again, if you're just joining, the child welfare hearing or the shelter hearing that was held this morning in Provo in juvenile court, which is open to the public, it was decided that that hearing is going to be put over. The purpose of the hearing was to determine whether the children are safe and where they should be placed, and then whether it should continue to be open to the public. And as I stated earlier, a couple times, in Utah juvenile proceedings, most juvenile proceedings are open to the public. Cases like this, child welfare hearings, are open to the public. They have a lot of transparency in Utah. The judge has set this down for a mediation conference on October 11th and a pretrial hearing on October 17th. It had been scheduled for a mediation hearing on Friday, which did not happen. And then today they only addressed, what will happen going forward. So that's where we stand right now with that, with the custody or the placement portion of the children. Now, with regard to the bail hearing, there was also scheduled for today in a different court in Washington County. There was a bail hearing scheduled for Jodi and Ruby, who are both currently being held without bail in Washington County Jail. I'm not sure of the exact name of the jail. They both are being held in Washington County. That was scheduled for this afternoon. That has also been adjourned, interestingly enough, because there has been copious amounts of discovery. And Douglas Terry, who is a pretty well-known attorney in Utah, who is the attorney for Jodi Hildebrandt, has asked the court for more time for the bail hearing because of this copious amount of discovery. And this is interesting because I pulled the court records this morning. That's why I was a little bit late coming in, because I wanted to have the correct information for you. On, let's see, this probably was, a proposed subpoena from the attorney. Hang on. Okay, actually from the county attorney. So the county attorney in Washington County has asked the judge to sign a subpoena to release the medical records of the two youngest children that were being held in Jodi Hildebrandt's house. They've asked for release of the medical records from St. George Regional Medical Center. And so they wanted to obtain copies of those records, I guess, obviously, so they could see the severity of the injuries, so that they could see what was reported in the medical records. And yes, thank you so much. Somebody told me, and this is, I found this really interesting. The name of the jail is called Purgatory. That's the name of the jail that they're being held in. So isn't that sort of ironic? They are right now being held in purgatory, which has religious connotations, and that's the name of the jail. I was going to credit whoever just told me that, but now the chat is moving so quickly that I can't do it. So whoever did say that to me, thank you so much for that information, because I remember being a little bit, I don't know. I thought that was a little bit bizarre. Oh, here it is. Thank you so much. Helen, the Scottish Llama. The jail is called Purgatory. Yes, you are correct. So, are there a lot of trolls in the chat? All right, my moderators will get them. You guys, my moderators are the best. So you can try and troll, and you can try and you can try and spew some of your BS in the chat, but they will get you, and they will block you, and they will time you out. So, I mean, go for it. Hey, like I say, come for me in the comments. I'm making t-shirts. So, thank you, moderators, for all that you do, for keeping the chat classy, for keeping the chat classy, and for, deleting any offensive comments. If you'd like to chat, we're happy to have you chat, but we need to do it respectfully and in a way that does not attack me, my guests, or anybody else in the chat personally. Guide your actions accordingly, and thank you. So this morning in Washington County Court, the both attorneys, Douglas Terry, who's the attorney for, as I said, Jodi Hildebrandt, and the Washington County attorney, stipulated to continue the detention hearing that was scheduled for this morning in order for the defendant to have sufficient time to receive and review discovery in this case. So they've stipulated to adjourn this hearing without date. I'm assuming that Ruby Franke's attorney was in on this stipulation as well, because these cases have both been brought in front of, actually, they were moved in front of the same judge, who is Judge John J. Walton in Washington County 5th District Court in St. George. This is also interesting because you may recall last week, Jodi Hildebrandt's attorney made a motion for an expedited hearing, and he wanted this hearing to be expedited. And they both wanted to have them released on bail. In fact, a lot of talking heads, media were reporting that they did think that Ruby Franke was going to be released on bail today. So thankfully, that hearing has been postponed without date. They're saying it should happen sometime around October 5th. There has been no exact date set for that hearing, but both hearings, again, if you're just joining me for today, the child welfare hearing that was this morning has been put over until October 17th with a mediation on October 11th, and the bail hearing has been put over without date until perhaps October 5th or sometime after that. Since we last reported on this, there has also been some other interesting information that has come out. Several of the family members have spoken out and given new statements, including the sisters of Ruby, Bonnie Holine, I think is how you pronounce her name, and also her other sister, who also has a family vlogging channel. I do not know her first name, but the name of her channel is Daru Crew, so I guess her last name is Daru. I'm going to play those statements for you in a second. Ruby Franke's nephew also broke his silence. As you know, we covered at length Jesse Hildebrandt's story and the interview that she gave to Mormon Stories podcast that host, the amazing John DeLynn, actually gave me permission to use clips of his footage from his interview with Jesse Hildebrandt, who is the niece of Jodi Hildebrandt, who told her story about how she was severely abused by her aunt, Jodi Hildebrandt, back in somewhere around 2005 when she was 15 years old. And their parents, she goes by they, them. I'm sorry, I don't want to misuse her pronoun, their pronouns. When Jesse was abandoned by their parents at Jodi's house in Utah in 2005 and forced to live with Jodi, and the severe abuse that was inflicted upon Jesse during the time that they lived with Jodi, and how Jodi would make them run up and down a mountain for 6 hours with, I think, a backpack full of rocks. If I'm mixing up stories, I'm sure you will let me know. Horrific, horrific abuse. Jesse was brainwashed into thinking that she was a horrible person, that they were a horrible person, that everything they did was deserved, that all of the abuse that was being inflicted upon them was some way of getting them to behave properly, even though they had never really been into anything horrific. There was no drug involvement. There was no criminal issues with Jesse, but that is a harrowing interview. You can go back and watch my last live for clips from it, or and underneath that video is the link to the entire 3-hour interview on Mormon Stories podcast, which I would also highly recommend that you watch. Let me just go to super chats for a second. Sarah Adams, thank you so much for joining and for your $2 super chat. What was Jodi's near-death experience? We do not know. As you know, any medical records regarding Jodi and Ruby, who both have been in the hospital. Jodi was actually in the hospital for a couple of days, as far as I've heard from the reporting, and Ruby was in the medical ward in the jail. Neither reason has been disclosed, and that's because of HIPAA laws. We are not entitled to know I don't know if anybody has any other information on that. Hi, Jaggy5. So nice to see you. Thank you for the €5 super chat. Melanie, love your channel and excellent mods. Yes, they are the best. They are the best. They protect me. Thank you. And hello to Duty Ron with the $20 super chat. I'm here to get Attorney Melanie a little awesome take on the day's events. She is my ATF. Thank you. Thank you so much, Duty Ron. You're so generous. And you know, you're my bestie. And also such a great mentor for me and a protector. Hi, Kirsten White. Hello from Colorado. Hello to Colorado. And whoa, how about my buffs? Our buffs, I guess we can say, Kirsten, since you are also from Colorado, taking down CSU in the Rocky Mountain Showdown on Saturday night. If anybody watched that, wow, what a game. Deion Sanders is now the head coach for Colorado. We finally have a team. I haven't, you know, when I was in Colorado at CU, we won the Orange Bowl, and that was a long, long time ago. And it's been a very long time since we have had a team that is as amazing as I hope the team will continue to be this year. We are finally ranked. I think we are number 18 now in the top 25, if anybody has any info on that. But that was a late game. That started at 10 p.m. here on the East Coast, and it went into double overtime. I could not stay awake because I had an early morning call time the next day, and I did catch up on the highlights. So go Buffs. Amazing, amazing game. Yes, they did. Thank you, Donna Marie. They killed it in overtime, double overtime. Did you actually stay awake for that? Because I don't know what time it ended. I went to sleep. I just could not. My eyes were closing. Sarah, we have Oregon football, which is insane. No pro. Yeah, well, you know what? They're playing Oregon this week on Saturday. So tune in for that game. That should be interesting because Oregon's got a really good team. Oh, hello, Language of Horses from Meeker, Colorado. Thank you so much for joining. All right. So it did go forever, Hudson. It did. So another interesting story broke that I want to address first because I thought that this was a little bit bizarre. And apparently a woman who was in jail with Ruby Franke gave an interview to media, and she spent 3 nights in jail with Ruby Franke. She didn't know who Ruby Franke was at the time. The only way that she knew who Ruby Franke was when she got out. And somebody picked her up and they were talking about the case. And she was like, oh, that's the woman that I was talking to in the medical area in the Purgatory Correctional Facility, which is where Ruby was being held, or where this woman was being held. And also Ruby and JODI continued to be held. So this woman, her name is, and she made her name public by giving this interview. Deborah Monson, who's 52 years old, spoke with Insider about her stint in the custody of Washington County Sheriff's Office in Utah at the same time that Franke and Hildebrandt were there. Monson was arrested on August 31st on allegations of petty theft and drug possession. She says she's innocent and will fight the charges, but she was booked the day after Franke and Hildebrandt were arrested. And Monson said that she spent around an hour with Hildebrandt at the start of her stay at the Purgatory Correctional Center facility, followed by 3 nights with Franke in the medical area. And Monson said she described both Franke and Hildebrandt as really tight-lipped, but she said she had a lot of time to observe how Ruby Franke behaved. She said that Ruby Franke seemed extremely distressed that she and Hildebrandt had been separated. Franke said, God, how long are they going to keep us in here? And why did they separate me and JODI? She said, I can't understand why they separated me and my friend. And Monson went on to say she was really, really concerned about Hildebrandt and wanted to see her, wanted to talk to her. And so Monson told Franke that she was briefly alongside Hildebrandt when she was being booked. And she said, Franke said, oh, what did she say? How did she act? Did she say anything at all? And Monson described Franke as almost childlike in her manner and almost smitten with Hildebrandt, which is a very interesting choice of words. There's been a lot of speculation about whether or not Ruby and Jodi are in a romantic relationship. I think that we can all agree from watching all of the videos that we've seen that were released by Connections. I did another deep dive on that. There's a playlist. Maybe I didn't make the playlist yet, but there's a whole live that I did on the Connections content of Ruby and Jodi. And I think we all agreed that there was some type of very close relationship there, whether it's romantic or not. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me, but I know that from what we saw and what we discussed, it seemed like Ruby was under some pretty serious mind control by Jodi. And if we listen to the interviews that we've seen with Jesse Hildebrandt, and the gentleman who came out and said that Jodi Hildebrandt ruined his marriage, and his case was the reason that Jodi Hildebrandt's license had been suspended in 2012 for 18 months because she broke privilege and brought his sensitive personal information to the bishop or the elders of the Mormon Church and told them that he was addicted to pornography. We can, I think, agree that Jodi Hildebrandt had some methods, perhaps in her therapy practice, that were a little bit disturbing, maybe, to say the least. Going back to this interview with Ms. Monson, she said that Jodi had obviously been crying a lot, and her eyes were really red and swollen and kind of squinted. You could hardly see her eyes, and she looked very distressed. She then asked Hildebrandt why she was in jail, and Jodi looked at her with not a smile, not a frown, but a straight face and said, "I'd rather not say." And that was it. Monson said that Franke reacted to what Monson told her by saying, "That's what I thought she would be like." Monson also said, this is interesting, that Franke played mother hen, quote, mother hen, to another woman in their cell who Franke believed was going through drug withdrawal. Franke was tucking the blankets under her and mothering her, nurturing her, Monson said, which is interesting because she didn't nurture any of her own children. If any of you watch any of the 8 Passengers videos where she wouldn't bring her youngest child lunch and all of the other horrifying things, made Chad sleep on a beanbag for 8 months, she was not nurturing of her own children. So this begs the question, is she putting on a show now and pretending to be nurturing? Interesting. Monson said Franke also carried a Bible with her a lot of the time. She kept holding it to her chest and she closed her eyes, trying to get people to believe she's a religious, pious woman and very nurturing and mothering. At one point, Monson said she saw Franke crying. When she asked her what's wrong, Franke said, quote, "I just miss my kids," end quote. Monson said she doubted Franke's sincerity, though, saying her emotions seemed to have no depth and that she seemed completely narcissistic. Not shocking. Wow. So it seems like she's putting on quite a show in Purgatory Correctional Center. Tell me what you think. I'm going to go to chat for a second. 100%. I agree with you, Joanne, and I've said this before. I feel this would have been a Lori Vallow deal in the end if they'd not been stopped. I agree with you 100%. And that is so disturbing on so many levels. Sherry Claiborne, at least 25 years, in my opinion. These children were close to death, yes. They were each charged with 6 counts of felony child abuse. Each count carries a max of 15 years in prison. We're going to see how this plays out, and I will be here with you for it all the way. Neurology love. She made her own kids sleep on the bathroom floor when they were sick. as you know, if you've been following me, I have 5 kids of my own, and I cannot even imagine making my kids sleep on the bathroom floor when they were sick. When my kids were sick, they came in bed with me. So, so many of us choose to parent in different ways. And I know that so many of you, my viewers, because I've read your comments and I always read your comments after the show, and I continue to follow the comments for however long these videos have been up. And I know that so many of you are survivors of CA, and I have heard the stories, and I hear you, and I hear the horrible things that you went through as children, and my heart breaks for you. And so many of you have tried to heal from it, but it just, it becomes a fabric of your being. And so many of you have gone on to parent your children in such different ways, and I applaud you. And I just want to know that I see you, and what happened to you is not your fault. Just like it was not these children's fault. And the fact that the youngest son went to that neighbor, and you could hear him on that 911 call saying, "It's all my fault," is heartbreaking. And anybody who's been through it, as some of my viewers have, often feel like it's their fault, because the abuser makes you feel like it's your fault and that you deserve this type of punishment. And yes, Aubrey, right. Quote, "You don't deserve love." That's what so many abusers say to their children. And there's a Stockholm syndrome involved here. And it's horrible. Yes. Thank you, Duty Ron. If you're not yet subscribed, please do. We are coming up on 10,000 subscribers. So let's get there. Maybe we can get there today. I don't know. I think we were about 9,100 when I started this show. Has Ruby's parents spoken out? I do not have any information on them speaking out. I do know they also have a YouTube channel called something like the Griffith Grandparents, I want to say. Griffin Grandparents. I'm not sure. Somebody can correct me on that. Last I heard, they were on a mission in Serbia, and I do not think that they have neither have they come back to the US, nor have they given a statement. But that's a good segue into let's take a look at some law and crime footage with Bonnie's latest statement. You may recall during one of the early lives, we played Bonnie's earliest statement, which we thought was a little crocodile tear-ish, but let's see what Bonnie, now that she's had some time to regroup and talk to her PR team, perhaps, has to say now. Remember that nearly everyone in the Franke family has a family vlogging channel on YouTube. And Bonnie is one of them. She's got a family vlogging channel. Her other sister, who we will hear from, also has a family vlogging channel, as do the grandparents. You may also recall that we have discussed that the Mormon Church has a budget for Mormon family vlogger content creators. And I do not know, and do not claim to know, whether they are compensated for every video that they do on their channel, but they are certainly compensated for certain videos that they do on their channels regarding the Mormon faith and certain holidays and videos like that. That has been confirmed by someone who actually was a family vlogger and was compensated by the budget from the Mormon Church to create content that made the Mormon Church look good, and perhaps try and help to recruit other families. Not sure, not claiming to know. Come for me in the comments. I welcome it. Be respectful. Here is Law and Crime with Bonnie Holine's statement.
Towards Ruby and Jodi and Kevin and connections.
I'm just going to rewind it a bit.
My thoughts towards Ruby and Jodi and Kevin and connections is that it was all bullcrap. It was complete indoctrination of this thing that they created.
Sisters of Ruby Franke breaking their silence after the Mormon YouTuber and her business partner are charged with child abuse.
We all felt weird about this JODI lady. We weren't comfortable with it. We didn't like it. We didn't like the teachings Ruby was bringing to the family functions.
Ruby Franke is being held without bail on 6 counts of felony child abuse. Now 2 of her sisters are speaking about their suspicions.
We did not know what they were doing.
Franke's business partner, JODI Hildebrandt, is being held on the same charges after 2 of Franke's children were found at her home late last month. 1 child had escaped. Here's part of the 911 call.
911, the address of your emergency. Tell me exactly what's happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. We know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated. He's got tape around his legs. He's hungry and he's thirsty.
This story has captured the attention of people around the world. Franke had been known for her YouTube channel, 8 Passengers, where she and her husband, Kevin Franke, documented their lives. Uploads appeared to stop last year. That timing appears significant, according to videos posted on YouTube by 2 of her sisters.
3 years ago, Ruby, everything was great. It seemed to be fine anyway. We were a typical family. She was getting some therapy counseling because their family needed it, which I think is great. However, I think you need to get it from a great source. Read the reviews. JODI Hildebrandt and her website or therapy style, I don't know what you want to call it, Connections, was not a great resource.
Hildebrandt's Connections classroom claims to help people with a range of problems through counseling. Ruby Franke is listed as a counselor on the website. Another one of Franke's sisters claimed the family had been cut off from Franke's family.
We did not know what they were doing because, like we said, we were cut off. I knew they were weird. I knew that they were off. Those are the things that we kept quiet about because what was I going to say? What was I going to do? I was not going to come out and publicly say that I don't like my sister and I don't like what she's doing and I think she's weird.
Ruby Franke has been under fire for many years as viewers of her YouTube channel voiced concern about her strict and what appeared to be emotionally abusive parenting style.
I hesitate to say this because it's going to sound like I'm like a mean barbarian, but I told the kids, I said, I'm not even going to let you eat breakfast until you get your chores done.
The hashtag cancel YouTube vlogger became popular on social media.
I'm not going anywhere.
One of Franke's sisters said her behavior became more and more strange.
So 3 years ago, Ruby and I hung out bottling tomatoes, and then a few weeks later, crap hit the fan and she left the family. And she didn't even call me to say, hey, you know, Julie, you're doing this and this. I don't like it. You're living your life in distortion. So I'm going to have to take some time away from you. No, literally nothing. She did call my mom and yelled at my mom on the phone for 45 minutes and accused her of things that were not true.
Ruby Franke's siblings are also YouTubers. One sister lays part of the blame for this situation on Kevin Franke, Ruby Franke's husband.
So I still stand by what I said, is that I did everything that I could with the knowledge that I had and within the legal rights to Ruby and Kevin. The one person that could have done something within his legal right was Kevin. We had 0 contact with him. It was Kevin's job to check in on things, and he did not. So when I say that Ruby and Kevin and JODI and Connections have been destroying our lives offline for the last 3 years, that is exactly what they've been doing, causing turmoil within our family. We would talk in circles because nothing made sense.
But Kevin Franke's attorney has a different take.
Kevin never had any reason to believe that his children were being abused.
Robert Kester told Law and Crime's Sidebar podcast that Kevin and Ruby had been separated for 13 months, and he didn't know she had taken the children to JODI Hildebrandt's home.
Emotionally, she was controlling him because she knew how much he valued their marriage and valued their family. And
Emotionally, she was controlling Kevin too. That's his allegation. Not only was she controlling the kids physically and emotionally, but now they're going to claim that she's emotionally controlling Kevin, a grown man, an adult who is father to these 6 children. Wow.
And it was his desire to be able to get back with the family and preserve his marriage. So he was taking direction from her, and her direction was, it's so much better off, and I think we can salvage our marriage if you just, for now, don't have communication with the kids, and I will communicate with you. I'll reach out to you when we need to have communication.
One of the Frankies.
Whose words do those sound like? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Anyone? If you've been following me, you know that we've done a lot of deep dive into JODI Hildebrandt's therapy tactics and the marriages that she has broken up. And there are a lot of people speaking out about how she did marriage counseling with them, and it was her MO to enmesh herself in the family, separate the husband and the wife, and get into good graces with the wife. And that sounds like exactly something that JODI Hildebrandt would try and make him believe, or try and make Ruby tell Kevin to keep him away from witnessing this horrific abuse. And let me know what you think about that in the comments, about whether he as a father should have believed that, should have been in any way separated from and not seen his kids in 14 months because Ruby said that it would be best for the children. And if he did believe that, then how are we to believe, or how is a judge to believe, that he will from this day forward do what's in the best interest of the children? Tell me your thoughts on that.
Older children, Sherry, shared feelings of relief on Instagram following her mother's arrest. Ruby Frankie's sisters said they were able to reconnect with Sherry.
It was almost as if Ruby had been making up memories from her childhood. She was trying to grab at anything she could, and she would exaggerate on everything. So she started all of her lies back then, lying to everyone in her life, getting rid of all of her friends and family, and I literally had no contact with her. She wouldn't respond to any texts or emails over the time that I tried reaching out to her. Never got a response from her. So I was very fortunate to have been able to reach out to her daughter, Sherry, once she was an adult, and we were able to form a really close, strong relationship, which I am grateful for. And it was then that I learned more about Ruby, and it was then that Sherry had learned about lies that had been told to her.
Despite Ruby Frankie's siblings saying they were being shut out and didn't know the children were victims of alleged abuse, the sisters suspected something wasn't right.
I was not going to come out and publicly say that I don't like my sister and I don't like what she's doing and I think she's weird. That is what we kept quiet about. It wasn't until about a year ago when we were able to reconnect with Sherry.
Okay, so if you recall, I believe it was the first live that we did on this. It was right after Bonnie had given a statement on Instagram, and her statement and her video indicated that she had kept quiet for the last 3 years for the best interest of the children. She thought she was doing what was best in the best interest of the children, and therefore she did not speak out about what was going on with the children. And now she's sort of clarifying that statement and saying that, you know, we had no idea that they were being abused, but, you know, we just thought they were a little bit weird and a little bit off. And that's why they didn't go try and do anything further than what they did, which was pretty much nothing.
Sherry, again.
That was from a recent video from the sister named Bonnie. She had posted a video the evening of her sister's arrest, but later deleted it.
I don't think any of us could have ever seen this coming. We all did as much as we could legally, and you don't know what you don't know. The only thing that we ultimately care about is that our nieces and nephews are safe, and they are.
Ruby Franke will be back in court next week on her criminal case. A hearing will also be held about custody of her minor children. For Law and Crime, I'm Anjanette Levy.
Okay, so if you are just joining, both of those hearings were to take place today. The shelter hearing, or the child welfare hearing, was held this morning. It wasn't really held. They've set it for a new date, a mediation of October 11th and a pre-trial hearing of October 17th. The Kevin Franke did appear in person. Ruby Franke appeared via video. Shari Franke was in the courtroom. And while they didn't mention it, I know that there has been a guardian ad litem or an attorney appointed for the children, and I am sure that that attorney was in court as well. I do not know if there is one attorney appointed for all 4 of the minor children, or if each child has been appointed its own their own guardian ad litem. That is something that remains to be seen. But that hearing was put over. And then if you were just joining, the bail hearing that was supposed to happen today for Ruby and JODI has also been adjourned without date because Douglas Terry, who is the attorney for JODI Hildebrandt, has said that there is copious amounts of evidence that needs to be examined by the defense before they can go ahead with this bail hearing. So that's kind of where we stand right now. There's also a nephew who broke his silence, and I'm going to play that little clip for you as well. This comes to us from Inside Edition. Let's take a look at the nephew's statement.
Shocking new revelations in the child abuse arrest of mom influencer Ruby Franke, who shot to fame chronicling her life with her husband and 6 kids on her YouTube channel, 8 Passengers.
I'm going to take you through what our routine has looked like.
Today, Ruby Franke's estranged husband, sisters, and nephew are all breaking their silence about her stunning downfall. What was your reaction when you heard about these charges?
Disgusted, horrified.
On her YouTube channel, the Utah mom was known for dispensing eyebrow-raising parental punishment, like the time her 8-year-old daughter forgot her lunch at school.
Hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch.
But nothing could prepare fans for the Jailhouse jumpsuit-wearing mom's court appearance after she and her new podcasting partner, JODI Hildebrandt, were arrested on felony child abuse charges.
Ms. Franke's being held on a no-bail hold.
The women had been offering relationship advice on their podcast when police say Ruby's abused 12-year-old son escaped from a window in Hildebrandt's Utah home.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. He's emaciated. He's got tape around his legs. He's hungry and he's thirsty.
Matthew Franke is Ruby's nephew. Did you see any red flags that made you think that makes sense?
Not really. We always thought she was kind of weird, like a little bit on the stricter side, but nothing that screamed abuse.
Ruby's sisters are also speaking out.
We are in complete shock still as to what she had done because we had no idea of what was happening.
I am beyond disgusted. It is truly unbelievable.
And that last shot was of Ruby in her prison garb. I just went to look up Kevin Franke's reviews. As you know, or he was a professor at Brigham Young University. And we had pulled up on a prior live his page from ratemyprofessors.com. And as I pull it up today, it says his page is currently locked. So, I don't know how much credence we can give to this ramifications.com. I mean, I feel like people who leave reviews on anything, Yelp or Google are always the angriest people because people who are happy tend to not leave reviews. So, I can't say that these are 100% accurate, but, there were some mixed reviews on what kind of a professor he was. Some people say that he was an expert in his field. Others say that he was mean and that he was a tough grader and that it was insanely hard, that he was not so nice to the female students. So somebody says here he was very rude and mean. He spoke down to students in a disrespectful manner, unable to get in contact outside of class. He's very controlling, and you can only have the same views that he has or you'll be looked down upon. Caused me so much stress that I dropped out. That review is from September 10th of 2022, so long before these charges were brought around September 1st of this year. Professor Franke was rude from day one. He does not respect his students at all. He was always in a bad mood and made class miserable. He would make horrible homophobic remarks and make us students feel incompetent. His classroom felt hostile and like a prison. Hashtag I hate it here. And that was June 24th of 2022. So while the page may be locked now, these reviews are still up. Give them whatever weight you deem them to be given, but they are still up there. Let's head back to the chat for a moment, shall we? Hey, Sarah, thank you so much for the $2 super chat. How close was her 12-year-old son to death? We don't know. We don't know. We will not be privy to his medical records because of HIPAA. All we know is that when he did escape JODI's house and go to the neighbor's house, we know through the recording of his 911 call that the neighbor, the gentleman who called in, who was crying at one point during the call, you can go back to my prior video if you want to listen to the full audio of that call, described him as emaciated, as having duct tape around his ankles and wrists and rope marks on his wrist that we have since learned it has been reported to that rope marks where those rope marks may have been down to the bone. Sarah, again, says, I did read DCFS, was sent to that house 15 times and nothing. Yes. In fact, during my last live, I played some video of a report that showed that I think it was, I can't recall when, Shari, the oldest daughter, had called the police and asked them to go do a welfare check on the children because she reported that the children were home alone. The law enforcement responded to the home and said that they either knocked on the door or tried to get the children to come to the door, and nobody answered the phone, so they left and they were going to be calling DCFS. I have a lot of feelings on that. I'm sure that we all do. But yes, there were a lot of prior calls to the home. The neighbors were concerned. And this was the house in Springville where Ruby lived. Also on that 911 call of the neighbor whose house the young boy went to when he escaped, he indicated that it was Jodi Hildebrandt's house that the boy had escaped from, and that she is a really, really bad woman. We just didn't know how bad. So it seems that the neighbors in Ivins were concerned about Jodi, and the neighbors in Springville were concerned about Ruby. And like we always say on this channel, and we're going to say it again, if you see something, say something. And in this case, a lot of people said something and still nothing was done. These children have been failed by the system in so many different ways. And we see this in so many other cases. We saw this in the Harmony Montgomery case, where a judge in Massachusetts gave custody to Harmony's ex-con drug-addicted father in New Hampshire rather than grant custody to the lovely couple that had already adopted Harmony Montgomery's half-brother. And then Harmony Montgomery wound up in pieces in a duffel bag. And her father is going to go to trial for her murder. We saw this. We see this in a lot of cases, and it's so disturbing on so many levels. If you see something, say something. Hopefully you can help save a child, because so many of our children are failed by the system. Thank you, Sarah, again for each $2 super chat. Was Jodi sent referrals to destroy marriages? No, but Jodi was sent referrals by Mormon bishops. She was on the referral list that if somebody would go to their bishop with marriage issues, parenting issues, other issues. JODI was at the top of that list as being one of the sanctioned Mormon therapists on the list. She was also paid by the Mormon Church. You can come for me in the comments on this, but Jesse Hildebrandt said in their video that they did billing for JODI and that most of the bills went right back to the church and the church paid the bills. So make of that what you will. But she was very high up on the referral list that the Mormon bishops or elders would send their, I don't know if they call it a congregation. I'm sorry, I don't know the terminology for the Mormon faith, but they would send people who came to them with issues to JODI Hildebrandt and also pay the bills. So then when JODI Hildebrandt was found by the professional board to have violated her patient patient therapist patient privilege by reporting one of her patients to the Mormon Church for his alleged addiction to pornography and breaking up his marriage, when her license was suspended in 2012 for 18 months, that's when JODI started Connections. Interesting. She had to pivot and do something else because she wasn't getting the gravy train of the Mormon Church paying for the therapy anymore. Dave the Pious. At least the sisters are monetizing on these. Yeah. Yeah. They did monetize. I don't know if the latest statements have been monetized. I do know that the initial video that Bonnie posted was monetized and she received a lot of criticism for that. WT, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. So JODI and Ruby's lawyers asked it to be postponed. Does that mean they are trying to come up with evidence that the kids were healthy? Is this a bad or a good thing? I'm confused. Can you explain? Sure. They asked for the hearing to be postponed because they say that there is copious amounts of evidence that they need to sift through in order to make their arguments on bail, which means, in my opinion, that the prosecution has turned over a ton of discovery, which will include, I'm sure, the medical records, because earlier, if you were not here, I indicated to you that I have a subpoena here that I pulled up from the court file that the prosecutor had subpoenaed the medical records of both of those young children from the St. George Regional Medical Center to be produced to the prosecution. So anything the prosecution gets in discovery, they have to turn it over to the defense. Is it a good or bad thing? In my opinion, it's a good thing that they're both still being held in purgatory without bail. And does that mean they're trying to come up with evidence that the kids were healthy? No, I just think that that means that they are trying to make sure that they do a thorough job and go through all of the evidence so that they can represent their clients properly. And I think I answered, if that answers your question. We will see. There is no date currently set in stone for the bail hearing to be continued to. We heard that it will be somewhere maybe around October 5th. But I will keep you up to date on that because I have access to the court website and the court documents. AI Gen X, I think JODI had a lot to do with everything going on in their home. Yeah, I think so too. I think that, JODI's therapy tactics have been well publicized. And I think that we can all agree that they were pretty horrific. DK, if somebody told me not to see my kids for 13 months, I would not have accepted that. No, neither would I. And I think anybody who's in the chat as a parent or a grandparent would agree that you would do what was necessary to see your children. I can't imagine that this grown man was influenced by the possibility that, hey, they may get back together, so I'm going to do whatever Ruby says. And if he was that influenced by what Ruby had to say, then there is no way in hell that he should be given custody of these children, because his decisions are poor at best, let's say, when it comes to what's best for the children. Chickpea stranded, Ruby nurturing an addict. I can't picture that. I know, right? Isn't that kind of bizarre? Because all the viewers, the 2.3 million viewers of the 8 Passengers YouTube channel, saw how nurturing she was to her own children. AI Gen X again, Frankie's sister-in-law's so the phones and internet was disconnected when they separated. I don't know what you're referring to. Are you saying that that Ruby's phones were disconnected and they're or are you saying that when they separated, meaning when Kevin and Kevin and Ruby separated? I'm not sure what you mean by that comment, but thank you for participating in the chat in a respectful way. Caroline Ciano says, research Kevin Frankie. He is far from innocent. Yeah, I think we can do our research on that, and I think we can come to some sort of, I don't know if it's a consensus, but we certainly can have opinions on that, and we are entitled to our opinions. And listen, innocent until proven guilty. I'm not convicting anybody here. I am going by the public information, the court record, the interviews that have been done by media, by the family members speaking out. Sherry Frankie has spoken out on Instagram and all of her social media. We're trying to keep it to the facts here, but we're also entitled to our opinions. Helen the Scottish Llama, Utah has a max consecutive sentence of 30 years. Okay, that's interesting. Thank you for that. I do not practice in Utah. I'm not admitted to practice in Utah. I'm admitted to practice in New York with 30 years experience as a litigator here in New York. But if that is true, then that would be a max that they would be sentenced to if they're convicted, innocent until proven guilty, 6 felony counts of child abuse each, carrying a maximum of 15 years each, which according to my math would be 90 years. And you're saying that 30 years max would be the max sentence. Okay. That could be true. 100% that could be true. Chat's going crazy. So let me see what else you guys have to say. Jordan, I have to agree, Caroline. Kevin was in the videos being complacent. Yeah, a little bit complacent. And also he was a participant. Let's face it. There are videos where he was participating in it. He was there. He was an equal parent. He was agreeing with these punishments, with these public humiliations of their children. Really? Bra shopping with your child and putting it on YouTube for all of her friends to see? It's no wonder these children have said that they didn't have any friends, because they would go to school and their entire lives were broadcast on YouTube. So I don't know what this means, Cheryl. Their videos are only monetized if they go live. Ruby, no, that's not true. You can monetize videos that are not live. So I have to disagree with you on that. Joanne, exactly. You're showing the facts to back it up, and we can all state opinions respectfully. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Oh, thank you, Urban Infidel. Actually, this is a funny story, so I'll tell you this again. These walls are the exact color of a Tiffany box, because my favorite movie is Breakfast at Tiffany's. I have a poster right here of Audrey Hepburn dressed up as Holly Golightly right in front of me, framed. And I took a Tiffany box years ago to the paint store, and I had them match the color of the paint so that I could have my walls painted, that I could live inside of a Tiffany box, because I thought that was a really cool thing. So yeah, that's a little fun fact about me. I also have a sign over here in pink that says, "You cannot make everyone happy. You are not a cupcake." I'm here to remind you that I am not a cupcake. I am not going to make everyone happy. Those will be t-shirts as well. So you can, if you would like to watch a channel that has no opinions, that will show you a photo montage of the day's events with a robot type voice that will narrate for you in AI what was done that day or what the story is about, you are free to go watch that. That is not what I'm going to give you here. I'm going to give you the straight dope, whether you like it or not. And that's my channel. I am not a cupcake. I'm not a cupcake. And I encourage respectful debate. I do. And I will debate with you in the comments. And if you want to come for me in the comments, I'm going to make that t-shirt too. Because let me tell you something. The other night, I did a video. I did a live. And if you haven't heard about this story, please go check it out. It is about an NBA player by the name of Kevin Porter Jr., who allegedly assaulted his girlfriend, Kaiser Gondrezick, who is a former WNBA player, in a New York City hotel room on September 11th, of all things, because they were in New York City for Fashion Week. He plays for the Houston Rockets. Allegedly, his girlfriend ran out into the hotel hallway, bloody and beaten, and had strangulation marks around her neck and was complaining of neck pain. She was taken to the hospital. She was diagnosed with a fractured vertebrae in her neck. And Kevin Porter Jr. was taken to New York City, Manhattan Correctional Center and held for the day and was released on $75,000 cash bail the next day, which I was horrified by. And I'm going to say I'm horrified by it because apparently in New York, you can strangle your SIGO, significant other, intimate partner, spouse, commit horrific acts of domestic violence. And if you have enough cash, you can be released on bail the next day. His attorneys have come out since then and said that they would like the charges dropped because they had an independent review of the x-rays. And apparently their independent reviewer, who I believe is Dr. Michael Bodden, has said that he didn't actually break her neck. That was not a fractured vertebrae. The doctors at NYU Langone must have made a mistake because that's a congenital defect. So his lawyers are now demanding that the second-degree assault charges be dropped. And I am horrified by that story. And somebody in the comments said to me that I was, he said, just another white person criminalizing black males, not interested. I pinned that comment to the top of my comment section. And I said, sir, all of my other clearly you're not familiar with me or my channel, because all of the other stories that I've been covering are about white people doing horrible, horrible, horrific things to other white people. This is not a race issue. This is a domestic violence issue. So you want to defend this guy, or you want to disparage me for making this about race? Let's do it. And he ran away, and some of my viewers defended me. But, some of these comments are just horrific, and especially when it comes to things like domestic violence. Like, there are some people out there that I don't know if they're bots. I don't know, but I'm not a cupcake. Okay. Come for me in the comments. There are going to be people that are going to come into these comments and they're going to say that I am bashing the Mormon religion and that I am saying that the Mormon religion condones child abuse. No, that is not what I'm saying. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that JODI Hildebrandt was a therapist that was recommended by the Mormon Church. Fact. And that JODI Hildebrandt's methods were horrific. That's what I'm saying. Sorry, I got a little worked up. I call it passion, but some people call it far worse things. Melanie's bad. I just love her. Thank you, Trish. I think I'm like an acquired taste. Either you like me or you don't. And quite frankly, it doesn't make any difference to me. But I'm going to say it like it is. I'm not sugarcoating it. Karen, hands around a neck is a felony here. I don't know where you live. I think in New York it is too. He is still charged with strangulation. So it may not be a second degree felony here, but he's out on bail. And that frightens me too, because if he gets out on bail, but they did issue a temporary restraining order. So we know how that piece of paper is really going to protect her, because we know how perpetrators of DV abide by their restraining orders and protective orders. And I mean, how much more angry is he going to be when he gets out? Who knows what could happen to her next? But apparently her attorneys are also walking back the allegations and trying to say that, nothing that she told the police was accurate, and that is not any indication of how their relationship is. And it's something that's very, and that's not what this stream is about, but it's something that's very common in victims and survivors of DV, that they take the guy back. Horrible. Go to that live if you want to comment on it. And you know what? I didn't have a huge audience for that one. And I didn't care, because it was such an important story to me, being a New York lawyer, that it just makes me feel like the New York courts are not taking victims of DV seriously. And I find that horrifying, especially since Kevin Porter Jr. has an $86 million contract with the Rockets and lives in Texas. So he's got the means and ability to not come back. It's like, hey, give us 75 grand in cash and please come back and see us on October 16th. The whole thing made me so angry that I had to go live with it. It doesn't seem to be a story that's getting a whole lot of attention. So make of that what you will. April says, probably in the hospital due to sleeping quarters not being up to their liking, probably freaked out. Yeah. Not the luxury homes that they are accustomed to. Melody Bennett, can you imagine living in a society where there was only one point of view, opinion, method allowed? No, thank you. Respectfully disagreeing should be done more often. Exchanging thoughts should be easy. Yeah, it should be. Should be. But there's, there's a lot of trolls out there, and there's a lot of people who try and turn the story into something that it's not. This is a story about child abuse. This is a story about a woman who has been publicly abusing her children on YouTube since 2015 and had 2.3 million followers watching in horror and shock as she would mete out these punishments to her 6 children and kind of laugh about it, and Kevin was involved in it too. And those of you who watched that channel know it. You know it. It was public. It was out there for everyone to see. Hi, Jeanette. Melanie, you are my cupcake and I'm straight. Oh, thank you, Jeanette. I appreciate that. It doesn't matter to me whether you're straight or not. I'll take compliments from wherever they come. I love it. Thank you so much. So that's where we stand with this case. I'm going to be here all the way following this case with you. I am as horrified by this case as you are. We are here for cakes. I decorate cakes for a living. I need that t-shirt for rude customers. Yeah, I am not a cupcake, or just, get the sign. I didn't make the sign. I bought it. But I've made it my logo, my slogan. I love it. I hate a cupcake for breakfast. I hope we aren't, who doesn't eat cupcakes for breakfast? I mean, if they're there. Absolutely. Thank you, Jane, for the $1.99 super sticker. I so appreciate you. Thank you all for your support. I really appreciate you. If you are not yet subscribed, please subscribe down below and please hit the notification bell so that you do receive all notifications when I go live. Some of you have said that you're not receiving notifications, and that may be because you have the bell set to, you don't have it set to all notifications. So that could be the problem and the reason why you are not receiving all notifications. Thank you so much. Bark and Mad for your $19.99 super chat. In my opinion, Kevin shouldn't get the kids. Kevin's attorney has been very careful to say that he's never been accused of physical abuse. Yes, he chooses his words very carefully. I noticed that too. I think he even recognizes that KF's parenting tactics pre-JODI were problematic at best. Yeah, I think he's gotta recognize that, right? I mean, you need to, when you're representing a client, and I would tell my clients this all the time, like, I need to know everything. I need to know everything, good, bad, and ugly, because I can't represent you if you're going to lie to me. I don't want to be surprised by anything, and sometimes I need to put it out there first because I need to get in front of it, so hopefully he's telling them the truth and he can represent him to the best of his ability. Paul Clank, $1.99 super chat. Thank you. Top of the muffin to you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Cupcakes, muffins. We're on a baking theme right now. There's a couple more things here I wanted to address. Marzi 1. Lord, this family is with their YouTube channel. It's crazy, yet they can't even keep track of what their family is up to. Yep. Or they choose not to, Tammy Donaldson, Kevin makes me ill. I'm just so sorry. I have to say that. No, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. We're here for it. You're entitled to your opinion. I think that a lot of the viewers feel the same way that you do. What kind of dad abandons their kids for 14 months because their wife tells them to? I don't get it. Fairy Grandma, where did Jodi H work before she started her porn addiction therapy crap? This is interesting because I found this, a little blurb. She worked at Cirque Lodge in Utah, which is a very famous rehab facility for celebrities. So she worked there for a stint. I do not know the exact dates. I also heard on another show, and I don't know if this is 100% true, but that she may have treated Paris Hilton when Paris Hilton was at I believe it was the Provo Canyon School. It's one of those troubled teen places that Paris Hilton has been very vocal about being sent to when she was about 15 years old, and the horrific abuses that she endured at this place. And I don't want to misname the school, but I think that was the name of the school. So somebody came out in an interview and said that JODI Hildebrandt had bragged to this patient of hers that she had treated Paris Hilton. I don't know if that's true. Make of it what you will. If anybody has any personal information or personal knowledge of that, I would love to know, because I find that very interesting. Paris Hilton has testified in front of Senate committees about the troubled teen industry. Many of these places that people send their teens to rehabilitate them, or, kind of like reform school, are not regulated. They do not have people working there that are in any way qualified to treat teens for the issues that they convince the parents that they will help them with. And if you have not watched the documentary of Paris Hilton, where she speaks out about what happened to her when she was 15 years old, it's on YouTube. You can find it. I do not care how you feel about Paris Hilton. You will have a new respect for Paris Hilton after you watch this. It's mind-blowing. Came out a long time ago, maybe a year or two ago. But you may recall that the Frankies also sent Chad to one of these places. They called it a wilderness camp. God knows what happened to him at that wilderness camp. So that's where JODI worked before she started this connections nonsense. Aaron Thistle, has there been any report about how these two young children are doing now? No, I have not seen any reports. If anybody has seen any reports, please let us know in the chat. Please do not put links in the comments, though, because YouTube automatically blocks them, because people could post links to things that could contain viruses or, porn or something like that. The son had really deep wounds to the bone, says AI Gen X. Yes, I think we talked about that, and that is horrifying, if true. Just absolutely horrifying. And Sarah says, and Bonnie goes from crying to talking fine. All she's worried about is how it affected her channel and her money. Yeah, Ruby has been public about the fact that she made millions of dollars from her YouTube channel, millions of dollars. And she said that in one very tearful connections video that she did with JODI, where she said, I made millions of dollars and I had to give it all up because of I wanted what was best for my children. Millions of dollars from YouTube, but I had to stop doing videos because I wanted to do what was best for my children. You cannot make this up. You guys, you just cannot. Chris McDaniel, how did he have access to IP at 3 if she did not allow him to? I have read or heard that she once said that he watched something like The Walking Dead, and she considered something like The Walking Dead to be porn. So who knows what it is that she's referring to? It may be that he saw the cover of a Sports Illustrated magazine. Her definition of what that is very telling. Run the World, thank you so much for the $49.99 super chat. Just arrived back in the country Thursday, was diagnosed with COVID Saturday. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I just went through that too. How are you? It was bad this time, you guys. It was bad. Just don't get it. I was down for a while. Positive is I can binge watch your past episodes. Oh, go back and watch the one that I was like getting over COVID. I could barely speak, but I was like, I got to talk about this. Only caught a few minutes of one of them the 3 weeks I've been gone. Love your sarcasm. Thank you. Thank you so much. That brings me to another point. I started the morning show, which has started back up again. If you have not watched the morning show, it's on Apple TV. It's with Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon's great show. But before I started the new season, I went back and watched the last episode from the last season to kind of catch myself up. And that's the one where Jennifer Aniston's character, Alex Levy, is diagnosed with COVID right in the beginning of the pandemic. And she, what a performance. Holy crap. She goes on the air with COVID to try and help the viewers get through it. And it just really brought me back to like the time when like the world first locked down. And it's so hard to believe that was 3 years ago, and how much has changed since then. And how our priorities have shifted, and Anyway, I just love that show. So I highly recommend if you're looking for something to watch. Season 3 just started on Apple and Run the World. I hope that you get better soon. It's bad. It is bad. Any further questions, comments, concerns? I am in the chat right now, and we've already been on for about an hour and a half, but I'm here for you if you have anything. Mary says, these people claim that a child cleaning their room and being proud of it is sexual. Everything is an addiction to Jodi. Yeah. Yep. Alma says, I remember that Jodi used to punish the girl that was in her house because something she dreamed. Yeah, that was Jodi's niece, Jessie, like accusing her of having an abortion because she dreamed she did it. Yeah, I wonder if Ruby was doing that. Yeah. Yeah. And if you haven't seen that interview with Jodi Hildebrandt's niece, Jessie, who comes out and speaks very openly about the abuse they suffered at the hands of Jodi. I did a live on that. My last live on this, I believe, brought up that interview. And also in the description of the video that I did is the video to the full 3-hour interview with Jessie that Mormon Stories podcast did. Dr. John DeLynn gave me permission to use clips from that interview, and it was riveting, really riveting. And it gives us a lot of insight as to the methods of Jodi Hildebrandt and the torture that Jessie underwent at the hands of Jodi Hildebrandt. And there's a lot of other interviews out there with former patients of Jodi. And it is, yeah, it's a must see. It is a must see. Hi, Team Brittany, and thank you for coming on as one of my moderators. Welcome. That interview was hard to watch. Such a beautiful girl. Yes, they are. They are very beautiful. Heidi, great job. Thanks for fighting for these victims. That's what I do. That's what my entire 30-year law career was. You know, advocating for victims, survivors, mostly of clergy, SA, but also SA, DV. Yeah, about them buffs. Go buffs. Deion Sanders, I heard, was on 60 Minutes last night. I have not watched that yet, but oh, I love him. He's really so inspirational. So inspirational. Liza, oh, did I make a mistake? Is this channel about celebs? No, this channel is about everything. It's about whatever I want to talk about, whatever I feel is important. And sometimes we digress, but it's the way we roll. And a lot of people like it. So if you're here for the only the Frankie story, you can certainly rewind and listen to that part. That was the entire first part of this hour-and-a-half video. But welcome to you anyway, regardless. Let's see if there's anything. Z, Dr. John Matthias analyzed some parts of Jodi's book, and allegedly she wrote she was abused and didn't have a good relationship with her parents, so the abusee becomes the abuser. That's Jodi's book. I did not see that, but that's interesting. Oh, what I did see, though, I'm trying to think of who did this interview. I think it was Anjanette Levy who did it, and she's on Long Crime, and she did a video where she had an interview with somebody from Ruby's family, and this person's voice was disguised and their appearance was filtered out because this person was very afraid of coming forward. And this person said, and she's I don't know if it's a man or a woman or how distantly related they are from Ruby, but what I sort of piecemealed together from all the parts of this interview that I listened to was that it may be a sibling of Ruby or a cousin of Ruby. But this person talks about the horrific abuse by the parents or the grandparents, and that it's generational, and that in the Franke family, it goes back generations. Again, it's out there. I cannot vet it for accuracy or for the truth of the matter asserted, which is what hearsay is. But this person did give an interview to, I think it was Anjanette Levy, and spoke about how the abuse in the Franke family was generational, and that some of the prior generations may have been severely beaten, that the punishments were very similar, that they would withhold food. It said it was Ruby's cousin. Tindra said, thank you for that. It was Ruby's cousin. Okay. So it was Ruby's cousin, which would make this person's parent a sibling of Ruby, which would take it back to the parents of Ruby, perhaps, who also have the YouTube channel that may have been abusive, or the other grandparents or the great grandparents. Allegedly, not making any allegations about anybody or anything. I'm telling you what was reported in that interview. Andrew, do you have any Kleenex tissues, please? I do not. I ran out myself, but this is a very, very sad story. We will continue to cover it. Make sure I thanked everyone properly for the super chats. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. Just to recap what happened today, if you were just tuning in, there's still 1,600 people in the chat. The child welfare hearing that was supposed to happen this morning has been adjourned to a mediation on October 11th and a pretrial hearing October 17th. Kevin Franke appeared in person with his attorney. At the beginning of this video, if you rewind, I played some unedited footage from KUTV in Salt Lake, which had the reporter's initial reporting, as well as the video of Kevin Franke's attorney speaking to the media and his comments. Shari was in the courtroom personally. Ruby was at the hearing via video, and Kevin was there with his attorney. It was also asked that the judge make a determination about whether or not the future hearings on the child welfare in the juvenile court will be open to the public. As I discussed earlier, the juvenile court proceedings with regard to these types of hearings in Utah are public. So you can go to the courthouse and watch the hearings. They are arguing that because this case has generated such public interest and media interest, they're asking that it be closed to the public. I do not know whether that will be granted under Utah law. In addition, the bail hearing that was supposed to take place today with regard to Ruby Franke and JODI HILDEBRANDT has been adjourned without date because the attorneys stipulated that there is a copious amount of evidence that they must go through before they can proceed with that bail hearing. So thankfully, in my opinion, Ruby Franke and JODI HILDEBRANDT continue to be detained and held without bail in Purgatory Correctional Facility, Washington County, Utah. Thank you for tuning in today. We will be following this very closely together. Please feel free to comment, like the video, share the video. Just be respectful in the comments. Don't attack me. Don't attack each other. Guide your actions accordingly. And I am going to see you real soon. Have a great day, everyone.